Hey there, welcome to this full UkeGuide review of this instrument. This is the Octopus Academy Soprano Natural Ukulele. And if you've watched this channel somewhat recently, I reviewed this instrument, which isn't quite the same. It is and it isn't all at the same time. And it's all about the finish, I think, more than any other combination here. And we'll get into that in a later comparison video between the two. But it's enough, it changes things enough that I wanted to review them separately. Not because I'm lacking content, but just I do want to treat them differently because they act differently as two different instruments, even though structurally they're pretty much basically the same. Now, I do want to state that this instrument, along with the blue one, were sent to me by Panyard.com, who is the US distributor for Octopus. That is why this video is marked as a paid sponsored video, not because I'm being paid to review it, but because these instruments were sent to me free of charge for review purposes. So just so you're aware of that as you watch the review. So the topics in this review, as usual, are, first of all, what are the subjective categories that I look at with all the instruments? So we look at things like cost, value, and so forth. Then I go over the specifications, and then I summarize the instrument and give it a UkeGuide rating out of 5 possible ukuleles. If you want to see a summary of this without watching the whole video, well, you can do that by going to UkeStuff.info and the UkeGuide page, and you can find the actual yellow one-page summary of this instrument. You can also skip ahead to parts of this video that you want to watch. If you don't want to watch everything, you can skip right ahead to the summary or right ahead to the specifications because this is marked with chapters using YouTube's chapters feature. So let's begin with the subjective categories. First of all, cost. These are $45 shipped from Amazon or Panyard.com in the United States. If you want to buy a school set, it's $990 for 24 of them, which ends up being $41.25. That's pretty affordable for a classroom set of 24 ukuleles. The only other couple of things to think about are that you get a light gig bag with each instrument, and you also get access to Andy Eastwood's, who is a ukulele personality in the UK, very, very famous George Formby style player that has some startup videos that are very good. I watched parts of some of them, and I really do agree with what he's saying as a teacher and the way that he's starting you off. So if you want to watch some beginner tutorials beyond the ones that I make, please go check out Andy Eastwood's stuff as well. It's very good on that Octopus page, and that's on the Octopus UK website. So cost is really affordable at $45 or less if you're going to buy in bulk for like a school. The value is above the price, so you're getting more for what you're paying for. This is probably worth more than $45 as a kit as a whole. And I'm going to say this a number of times in this video, just as I did the other review of the painted one. You will find cheaper ukuleles, but you won't necessarily find better for cheaper. And I think you'll see that as this review goes on. Now, as we talk about build quality, the one thing externally, and this is more appearance, but it also has to do with build quality, is that this agathis, which is what this instrument is supposed to be made out of, it's not really a stunning tone wood. I mean, it looks like really low grade, sort of like a mahogany laminate, and that's okay. Think about the purpose of this instrument. This is not an instrument that you're going to buy and use as your primary instrument the rest of your life. Now, you could, and it would probably last you the rest of your life, but most of us move on to much fancier instruments, and even Octopus has several different levels within their line. So this is a beginner ukulele that's affordable and well made, and that's its purpose. So it doesn't need to be stunning. It's also not unattractive, which we'll get to again. But as you look at build quality, I mean, the big question is going to be, what is the quality of the laminate? And we'll take a look at that in a second. The other thing that I want you to be aware of is that just like many ukuleles, you may end up with some sharp fret ends you have to deal with. And I do like this natural for that reason, because you can actually see the exposed fretboard versus the non-exposed fretboard. On the painted one, they painted all the way up to the top. So at this one, if I need to sand the fret ends because they're too sharp, I'm not going to chip paint. I can actually just sand and get to those sharp fret ends without having to worry about damaging any finish on the instrument. So yeah, otherwise it is cleanly built, sort of basic laminate, and that's all fine. Let's take a look at the inside of the instrument. I call this the internal Uke Cam, but it's just an endoscope that I use to see what's happening on the inside of the instrument. Also, I'll just mention this because Mim at Mims Ukes mentioned this at one point, that it frustrated her that we look at the inside of these instruments sometimes. And we don't really look at this to say it's good or bad, but it does show you the care with which an instrument is put together, even on an inexpensive instrument like this. So as I pull back, you can see the agathis there on the top and on the back. I am not sure if that's agathis on the side. It's a completely different tone wood, as you can see, or completely different looking tone wood. Also, you see that you do have a tail block, so if you needed to put in a strap on, you'd be fine. And if I get back a little further, you can see that there is a bridge plate underneath the bridge. So if you had to convert this to maybe a pull-through bridge for some reason, you could actually do that. But that bridge plate just adds a little bit of extra support. I don't see any other bracing on the instrument other than this one bracing across the back right there. All right, let's look at the upper bout. Again, this is a soprano, so I don't have a whole lot of working room here. You can see you have a neck block. You don't see a lot of glue mess here. And the neck block looks like it's made out of pretty good quality wood as well. But it's just standard. And again, you can see the difference in material between the soundboard up here, the back, and then the sides seem to be like a very, very different tone wood. So not sure about that, but just lets you see what's happening in there. And that's our look at the very clean inside of the Octopus UK205 NAT Natural. So we just talked about build quality, and then we also mix that with appearance. Again, I think it's just fine. The instrument, actually, there's some more striping being picked up on the camera than you see actually in real life there with the reflection there in the light. But it's not unattractive, but it is very plain laminate. Nothing wrong with that. This isn't meant to be a stunner of an instrument. It's not unattractive. It's just very, very basic, very, very plain. Although you do get the cute little octopus there on the top, as well as the octopus logo in that script. Should also mention, since you can see this here, is that it's a single piece for the sides. Oftentimes you'll see a seam down the middle of the instrument, and that's not the case. It's one piece of side laminate. If you want one of these, you can find it at Amazon or Panyard.com, again for $45. There are also painted options as well if you don't like the natural. Now, before we talk about playability and sound, just in case I play, I want to tune up again because I was really stretching the strings to see what was happening with the endoscope on the inside. So let me tune that up real quick. Now, in terms of playability, first of all, the action here was excellent on this instrument. It was just a touch high. I mean, literally a whisper high on the blue one. The action is excellent on this model. So that's going good for it. And there are nothing sharp to worry about or anything. Fret ends are not sharp yet, but you can feel how it could happen. Again, standard on most instruments. The only drawback is that it's a very rounded C-shaped neck with a 35mm nut and standard string spacing. So if you are a person with large hands, you may not like it. If you don't like real thick C-shaped necks, you may also not like this instrument. But other than that, it's very playable. And then the sound quality is pretty good. It's a little less boxy, a little more open than the painted version, and I think that's completely finish related. I think that the hard paint changes the tone just enough. So if you ask me which of the two has the better tone, I think it's this one. And again, I will do a comparison. Now, is it that big of a tone that you shouldn't buy a painted one if you wanted a painted one? No, it's still a laminate entry-level tone, but it is a little more open than its painted cousin or its painted brother or sister, if you want to think of it that way. So the tone is really good here. It is loud, and I didn't really demonstrate this with the blue one, but if you hit these things, they really can snap, which is kind of what you want from a soprano. You want it to be able to be bark, because oftentimes It's more of a rhythmic instrument rather than melodic instrument. Now, you will find people that play melodic stuff on soprano all the time. So I'm not saying that it can't be used melodically, but it by nature generally that falls to like a tenor a lot of times. So generally sopranos have that punch or bark when you need to have that sort of jangly old-fashioned soprano sound, and this has it, although on that laminate side of the sound spectrum versus a solid top or a wood instrument. And there are some excellent laminates out there as well. So laminates that sound almost better than wood instruments. I get that. But I think this is very nice for a laminate instrument that only costs $45. Another feature of these videos is I let you see what I'm hearing by playing the instrument into the app Tonal Energy Tuner. So let me do that. Play a C chord, and you can see what's happening with the sound. Yeah, I really don't think my ears are wrong as I'm listening between the two instruments. This is more open. It has more of a spectrum, and I think that's all connected to finish. Now, again, it's not a reason not to buy a painted octopus by all means, but if you're looking for the better sound between the two, maybe the natural one is the way to go. Unless you like the specific color, then by all means, buy the painted version. All right, now that we've looked at subjective categories, let's get into the specifications. It is a soprano ukulele with a scale length of 13.5 inches from nut to saddle. It has 12 frets, so 12 of the body, and it has legitimate side position markers. It is a double bout ukulele, top bout, upper bout, lower bout, and the soundboard and back are made out of agathis or kauri, and that is a new tone wood to me. The fretboard is supposed to be made out of laurel, but again, it looks a lot like rosewood to me. And this one actually happens to be in a little bit better condition. Not that the blue one was terrible, but it looked like it could use treatment. This one looks to be better, although the bridge here, not sure, again, that looks like rosewood, could be, dyed walnut or whatever, but that's also supposed to be laurel, and it is a tie bar bridge. It does not have a radius fretboard. The nut and saddle are plastic. It is not a compensated saddle. It's just a straight across saddle, which is what you'd expect. It is a porous satin finish, so you can see the pores in there in the light. And what's crazy is in terms of length, this one measures slightly longer than the blue one. They're supposed to be identical, but for some reason that doesn't hold to me. Going from the top of the octopus to the bottom center back of the instrument, I've got 21.0625 inches, which is slightly longer than the blue one, and a weight of only 12.6 ounces on this one, where the other one was like 13.8. Again, not a whole lot, but I am kind of surprised by the difference in length. The weight, I guess, would make sense with a paint finish versus a stain, but whatever. The tuner types are open geared tuners that work just fine. The action at the first fret is only 0.37 millimeters, and the action at the 12th fret is 2.16 millimeters. So the action here is amazing. Very easy to play and very comfortable to play. Works really well, no buzzing. Very, very happy with that. The nut width, just like the blue one, is 35.6 millimeters. So very standard 35 millimeter nut. And the space between strings at the first fret is 8.6 millimeters, which is 28.4 G to A. So very standard string spacing. And the depth of the neck at the third fret, just where I measure it, top of the strings to the bottom of the neck, is 21.8 millimeters. All right, now that we've talked about the subjective categories and the specifications, let's get into the summary of the instrument and give it a UkeGuide rating. As a reminder, this was sent to me for review purposes by Pannier.com, so please note that this is marked as a paid review, even though I'm not paid to review it. This instrument was sent to me for reviewed purposes, and that's why I claim that it's a paid review. So, the Octopus brand was made known in the ukulele world really by Barry Maz at God and Ukulele. He reviewed it, and at the time, there were a lot of really poor quality entry-level instruments. Now, granted, I think the basement of the ukulele world in terms of quality has really moved up. There are still some crummy models out there, but there are a lot of really decent working instruments, and then you have to ask yourself, is that cheaper instrument any better than the one that I can get just for a few dollars more? And in this case, you get a $45 instrument shipped in the US that I don't think you will find a cheaper instrument that's better. I think you can find cheaper instruments. You might find an instrument at this price point or a little bit higher that's about the same, but I'm not sure you'll find better for the price. Now, are there negatives? Sure, there's a few things that are worth talking about as I move the blue one out of the way to grab it. The gig bag, it comes with a gig bag. That's a positive, but it's really light. Now, a laminate ukulele doesn't need a lot, but if it were my instrument, I'd want a little bit thicker gig bag. And I guess my suggestion would be to Octopus, which would be to sell an upgrade for people that wanted to get that. So a lightly cushioned 10 millimeter gig bag with just a little bit more padding, maybe a nicer pocket, certainly a good handle to hold on to, but some shoulder straps or a single shoulder strap to offer that as an accessory, I think would be really good for owners, because I think they are going to like these. And as much as this may not be your only ukulele in your life, it's certainly one that when you buy it, you could haul it with you into a lot of conditions without worrying about it too much, versus somebody that has a $500 ukulele. There's times you don't want to drag that to places, but this you could, but you probably want a better gig bag for those moments. So that's one negative. And then the other is, like most import ukuleles, they all have this very C-shaped neck, and I just wish that the entire industry would flatten that more and make it a little more D-shaped. That's fine. Now, again, 35 millimeter nut, that doesn't bother me. I'm used to that, but again, people with large hands may not like it. My other thoughts, I didn't talk about it too much when I put the endoscope in here, just like the blue painted one. There is no kerfing on the inside of this instrument. Kerfing is that material that's sort of slotted. Sometimes it's reversed like canalea, but it's put in there to help the top and the bottom of the instrument hold on to the sides. But you really don't need that with a laminate ukulele. There was a time when Kella sold their entry-level instruments with kerfing and then removed it. That bothers me because it's a cost savings, whereas I think this has always been this way. So I would like to see kerfing in there, but it doesn't bother me immensely that it's not. I've seen that on other instruments, particularly when you can see that it is really well built. I'm not afraid of this falling apart. And by the way, again, you can see the actual laminate on the sides here, because again, it's just a basic instrument. You're not going to have binding on the sides or anything like that on such an entry-level instrument. The only other things I would say is that you can put strap buttons on it. You might have to deal with sharp fret ends at some point, but really, for a basic, not terrible looking entry-level instrument, this is really nice. Now, if I was teaching at a school, okay, again, we'll get into a comparison video of these at another time. My tendency would be to go with these just because the paint isn't going to chip and they're going to hold their appearance longer. If you have a school with those colors, you might want to buy the colored ones. I also think that these sound a little more open, just by a touch, than the painted one, but that could just be my opinion as well. Either way, $45, either the painted or the natural models, I would definitely recommend them to you, and they're available here in the US at Amazon or Panyard.com. So what rating would I give this instrument? I would give this one a 4.5 out of 5. It's a good one. If you buy it, you can buy it with confidence. Be a great one to give to kids, great one to use for schools. Definitely recommend it. All right, thanks so much for joining me for this video. I hope you're having a great day, and I'll be back soon with some more Uke stuff for you.